The sound of the ocean was the constant rhythm of Ramon de la Cruz's life. Every morning before the sun could rise over the coconut trees, he would push his old blue tricycle out of the wooden shed beside their small home in the fishing village of San Felipe, Zambales. The engine coughed and sputtered like an old man waking from a long nap, but it still carried him through the dusty roads, past rice fields, fishermen hauling nets, and children chasing rubber tires barefoot. Raymond wasn't a man of many dreams. He never asked for much, just enough passengers to earn for rice, and enough time at the end of the day to sing. That was his escape, his quiet rebellion against the world's heaviness. Every night, when the sun melted into the horizon, he would sit on a wooden stool in front of his mother's sari store, a single dim bulb flickering above him, and sing the songs his father once sang. The neighbors knew the sound well, the deep, velvety voice that seemed to drift with the sea breeze. They called him Elvis of the East. Ramon, sing Love Me Tender. An elderly man would shout while sipping coffee by the store. Raymond would grin shyly, brushing his wavy black hair back and saying, "You sure you don't want hound dog again?" Manglito. Laughter followed, and then as the first notes left his lips the chatter faded. For a moment the whole village seemed to pause. His voice carried warmth, sorrow, and something pure, like it came not just from his throat but from somewhere deeper, where memories lived. He learned that voice from his father. When Raymond was a boy, his father, Ernesto, was a fisherman who never learned to read notes but could whistle any tune. At night, he'd pull out his battered guitar and hum along to the crackling sound of Elvis Presley, on an old vinyl player someone from Manila had gifted him. Ernesto's favorite song was "Can't Help Falling in Love." It was the lullaby of Raymond's childhood. Music, his father would say, tapping his chest, "isn't about how big your voice is, it's about how true it sounds in here." Then, one night, a storm came without warning. The waves were cruel that evening, and the sea took Ernesto away before dawn. Raymond was 15. The music stopped. After that, the vinyl player became sacred. His mother wrapped it in cloth, keeping it near the small altar beside the family photo. Raymond rarely touched it, but every time he sang, he imagined his father listening somewhere, nodding with pride. Years passed, life got harder, his tricycle broke down often, the fares were small, and his hands became calloused from fixing engines rather than holding microphones. But every night, no matter how exhausted he was, he sang. Because singing made him remember who he was before the weight of life settled on his shoulders. One Friday evening, as the orange sun dipped into the horizon, he sang, "Suspicious Minds." A small crowd gathered again, mothers holding babies, teenagers with snacks, even a few fishermen still in their wet shirts. Behind them stood his mother, smiling softly, her eyes misty. "You sound more and more like your father every day," she whispered as he finished the song. Raymond chuckled. "I wish I could sing where he dreamed of singing, on a real stage, even once." She placed a hand on his cheek. "He'd be happy knowing you kept his dream alive here. That's enough, Anak." Ramon smiled though his heart ached. He knew she was right, but still, every time he closed his eyes he imagined bright lights, a microphone that didn't crackle, and an audience that didn't just hear him, but felt him. Later that night, after the crowd dispersed, Raymond stayed behind strumming his old guitar. The moon reflected off the sea beyond the road, and for a brief moment, he whispered, "If you're watching, I still sing for you." Then, with a deep breath, he began to hum softly. The crickets joined in. It wasn't a grand performance, but in that quiet space, between the hum of the ocean and the echo of memory, something magical lingered. The next morning was like any other. Raymond drove passengers to the market, helping old women load baskets of vegetables, joking with kids heading to school. He was always kind, never charging extra. Even when gas prices rose, people respected him not for his voice but for his heart. "Ramon, you ever thought of joining those TV singing contests?" asked Carlo, a local vendor, handing him a bag of pandesal. Raymond laughed. "I can't even afford the plane ticket to Manila, Carlo. Besides, who would drive your customers around if I left?" They both laughed, but deep down, a part of Raymond wondered, what if? That night after dinner he sat again at the store. The light flickered above him, the air smelled of salt and grilled fish. He began to sing, "Can't Help Falling in Love." His voice was gentle, aching with emotion. Across the street, a young woman with a camera around her neck stopped in her tracks. She was a tourist, American judging by her accent when she whispered, "Oh my God, he sounds just like Elvis." She watched silently, recording him on her phone. Raymond didn't notice. He sang with his eyes closed, lost in the song, lost in the memory of his father. When the last note faded, the woman approached him, smiling. "Sir, you're amazing. You sound like Elvis himself." Raymond blushed. "Thank you, ma'am. I just sing for my neighbors, and for my father." She introduced herself as Sarah, a music vlogger from Los Angeles. "You have a gift," she said earnestly. "The world needs to hear this." Raymond chuckled, waving it off. "The world's too big for someone like me." Sarah smiled mysteriously. "Maybe not as big as you think." She uploaded the video that night. As Raymond drifted to sleep, the waves hummed outside, steady and calm. He didn't know that his life was about to change forever. That somewhere across the ocean, his voice would awaken millions of screens, stirring hearts from California to New York, from London to Manila. For now he was just a small-town tricycle driver with a big heart, singing under the stars for a father he still missed. And the world, unknowingly, was about to fall in love with the Elvis of the East. Morning came quietly in San Felipe. The air was cool, the sky painted in soft orange, and the sound of distant roosters echoed through the hills. Raymond woke up to the familiar creak of his mother's wooden door and the faint aroma of fried garlic and rice. Another simple day, another ride through the dusty roads. He didn't know that, halfway across the world, his life had already begun to change. While Raymond adjusted the chain on his tricycle, his mother called out from the doorway, "Anak, someone's on the phone for you." He wiped his greasy hands on a rag and frowned. "Who'd be calling me this early?" "It's a foreign number," she said, covering the receiver with her hand. "Someone speaking English." Raymond's eyebrows furrowed as he took the phone.
"Hello, hi.
"Is this Mr. Raymond de la Cruz?" The voice was bright and excited. It was Sarah, the tourist from last night.
Ah yes, it's me. How are you, ma'am? Oh my gosh, Raymond.
"You have no idea what's happening. I uploaded your video last night, and it's gone viral."
Like millions of views viral."
Raymond blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. Viral.
"Yes.
"The whole internet is talking about you. People are calling you the Filipino Elvis. You're trending everywhere, from YouTube to TikTok." He stood frozen, the phone pressed to his ear, the tricycle engine still sputtering behind him. His mother, watching from the doorway, asked softly, "What's wrong, Anak?" He covered the receiver and whispered, "Ma, people are watching me sing." "From other countries," his mother gasped, hand flying to her chest. "You mean, like on TV, worse," Raymond said with a dazed laugh. "The internet." By afternoon, the whole village knew. Kids ran around shouting, "Kuya Raymond's on YouTube." The Sari Sari store was packed with neighbors huddled around a single smartphone, the video playing again and again. The camera had captured the moonlight, the sea breeze, and that golden voice that echoed through the night. Comments from strangers around the world flooded the screen.
"He sounds EXTL like Elvis."
"Goosebumps. This made me cry. You can feel his heart in every note." "Someone get this man on America's Got Talent." Raymond laughed nervously as his mother clapped her hands in delight. "Anak, people love you." "Look," but just as quickly, his laughter faded. "Ma, this is just the internet. People forget fast." "Maybe," she said, smiling gently. "But maybe this is your father's way of opening a door for you." 2 days later, as Raymond returned from the market, his phone buzzed with a message that made him drop the sack of rice he was carrying. It was from America's Got Talent. "Hello Mr. De La Cruz, this is Caroline from AGT. We saw your viral video and would love for you to audition in Los Angeles." He stared at the message, mouth slightly open. "No way," he whispered. "This can't be real." He reread it 5 times, then 10. It still said the same thing. By the time he got home, his mother was sitting on a bamboo chair, suing. "Ma," he said breathlessly, "they want me." "The show, America's Got Talent." She looked up, eyes wide. "What?" "They want me to audition in Los Angeles." Her sewing needle dropped onto the floor. For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of the waves outside filled the silence. Finally, she said softly, "Your father, he used to say, one day, our songs will reach the world." Maybe that day has come. But reality soon settled in. Raymond rubbed the back of his neck, voice trembling. "Ma, even if they want me, I can't go. I don't have money for the ticket, the visa, anything." His mother's eyes softened. "We'll find a way." The next morning, the whole town gathered at the store. News had spread like wildfire. The fisherman, the teacher, even the Tricycle Association president came. "Kuya Roman, we heard you're going to America." A boy shouted. Raymond smiled weakly. "Not yet, kid. I don't even have a passport." That's when old Manglito, the fisherman who always requested "love me tender," stepped forward. "You've given us your songs for years, Raymond. Now it's our turn to help you." He placed a folded 500 peso bill on the table. Soon others followed. A farmer handed over coins wrapped in tissue. A school teacher gave a few hundred pesos. A woman sold her extra fish that morning and added her earnings to the growing pile. Raymond's eyes stung. "I can't accept this. You all need this money more than I do." Manglito smiled. "This isn't charity, Raymond. This is love. You carry all our dreams when you sing." His mother stepped forward, holding a worn-out vinyl record, his father's old Elvis album. "Take this too, Anak," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Your father's dream is in this music. Bring it with you." Tears rolled down Raymond's cheeks as he hugged her. "I'll make him proud, Ma. I promise." Weeks passed in a blur. With the help of the village, the mayor's office fast-tracked his passport. Local TV crews came to interview the Elvis of the East. People donated online after hearing his story. Before long, a small travel agency offered to cover his flight ticket in exchange for using his story in their commercial. When the day finally came, the entire town gathered at the bus terminal. Mothers waved handkerchiefs, kids cheered, and men patted his back. Raymond wore his father's old leather jacket and carried a small bag with the vinyl tucked safely inside. As the bus engine roared to life, he looked out the window and saw his mother waving. Her eyes were filled with both pride and fear, the fear every mother feels when her child steps into the unknown. "Don't forget us, Anak," she shouted over the noise. Raymond pressed his hand against the window. "Never, Ma, I'll sing for you all." The bus pulled away, dust swirling behind it, and the village of San Felipe grew smaller in the distance. He held his father's vinyl close, whispering a quiet prayer. On the long flight to Los Angeles, Raymond looked out at the endless clouds below. He thought about his tricycle, the children who waved at him, the smell of his mother's adobo. It all felt like another life. He was just a simple man chasing a dream too big for his calloused hands, but somehow destiny had chosen him. Somewhere in the quiet hum of the airplane cabin, Raymond closed his eyes and smiled. "Pay," he whispered, "I'm going to sing on a real stage, for you." And as the plane crossed the Pacific, it carried not just one man's voice, but the hopes of an entire village, a mother's prayers, and a father's unfinished song. The plane touched down at Los Angeles International Airport just before dawn. Through the window, the city glowed like a field of stars, stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Raymond pressed his face against the glass, heart pounding. He'd never seen so many lights. They reminded him of home, of the fireflies that danced near the sea at night. But here, everything felt bigger, faster, louder. When he stepped out into the cool morning air, his nerves caught up with him. The last few weeks had felt like a dream, his video going viral, the invitations, the tickets, the endless prayers. But now, standing in America, thousands of miles from San Felipe, he finally felt the weight of it all. He looked down at his hands, rough from years of fixing tricycles. "What am I doing here?" he thought. "I'm just a driver who sings after work." But then he remembered his mother's trembling voice as she handed him his father's vinyl record. "Take his dream with you." He took a deep breath. "Okay, Pete," he whispered, "let's do this." 2 days later, he arrived at the Theater for America's Got Talent. The building towered above him, its glass doors reflecting the California sun. Crowds had already begun to gather, contestants of every kind bustling about, dancers stretching, magicians practicing card tricks, singers humming nervously in corners. The sound was a symphony of dreams colliding. A production assistant clipped a microphone to his collar. "You're contestant number 274, she said cheerfully. "You'll go on after the juggler from Chicago." Raymond smiled faintly. "No pressure, right?" She laughed. "You'll be fine. Just be yourself." But that was exactly what scared him. Was himself enough? He sat backstage clutching his father's vinyl. The photo on the cover, Elvis in his famous white jumpsuit, seemed to stare back with a confident grin. "You never looked nervous," Raymond murmured. "Teach me how you did that." The sound of applause roared through the curtain as the previous act finished. Then, a voice echoed through the speakers. "Next up, Raymond de la Cruz, all the way from the Philippines." His heart stopped. This was it. He walked toward the stage, the bright lights almost blinding. As he stepped onto the platform, he could barely make out the judges' faces: Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara and Howie Mandel, all watching him curiously. Simon leaned forward. "Good evening. What's your name?" "My name is Raymond de la Cruz," he said softly, his accent thick but steady. "And where are you from?" "From the Philippines, sir. A small town by the sea." Simon smiled faintly. "Welcome. And what do you do for a living?" "I drive a tricycle, but at night I sing." The audience chuckled gently. Raymond grinned. "My father loved Elvis Presley, so I sing his songs." Simon tilted his head. "Elvis, huh? We've heard a few of those before." There was a ripple of laughter in the crowd. Raymond's chest tightened. He knew what they were thinking. Another impersonator. Simon leaned back. "All right then, Raymond, let's hear it." The stage went silent. A single spotlight shone down on him. Raymond closed his eyes, clutching the microphone with both hands. He thought of his father on that stormy night, of his mother's trembling hands, of the villagers cheering him on. Then he began. "Wise men say only fools rush in." The first note was soft but rich, smooth, deep, and hauntingly familiar. The crowd's murmurs faded instantly. His voice carried that same velvet timbre, the effortless blend of strength and tenderness that defined Elvis. But there was something else too. A warmth, a soulfulness that made it feel new. Simon's eyebrows lifted. Heidi's mouth fell open slightly. Even the stagehands at the back stopped moving. Raymond opened his eyes midway through the chorus, and for a moment, he wasn't in Los Angeles anymore. He was back in San Felipe, standing in front of his mother's store, the moonlight glinting off the sea. He could almost hear the laughter of the children, the hum of the tricycles, the voice of his father whispering, "Sing from here, son." He poured everything into that final line. "But I can't help falling in love with you." The last note lingered in the air, pure and aching. Then, silence. For a heartbeat, no one moved, and then the audience rose as one. The theater erupted in applause. People were crying, cheering, shouting his name. Heidi Klum had tears in her eyes. Sophia put her hand over her heart. Howie stood clapping above his head. Simon Cowell remained seated, his eyes narrowed, not in skepticism but disbelief. He leaned toward his microphone. Ramon, I've heard thousands of Elvis impersonators, but what you just did, he paused, his voice uncharacteristically soft, that wasn't an impersonation, that was honesty. The crowd roared. Simon smiled slowly, shaking his head. You reminded me why people fall in love with music in the first place. He hit the golden buzzer. The confetti fell like rain, golden lights bursting around Raymond as the crowd screamed. He stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed. Then he looked up, past the lights, past the camera lenses, and whispered, Pa, that was for you. He didn't know if the cameras caught it. He didn't care. As he walked off the stage, his hands trembling, the host rushed up to him.
Ramon, you just got the golden buzzer.
How does it feel? Raymond smiled through his tears. It feels like my father can finally hear me. Backstage, the crew and contestants clapped for him as he passed. Even the juggler from Chicago gave him a hug. Man, that was incredible. He sat in the corner afterward, still shaking, staring at the golden glitter in his hands. He thought of his village, his mother watching on their tiny TV, the children jumping up and down, Manglito probably shouting, "That's our boy." In that moment, Ramon realized something. The dream wasn't just his anymore. It belonged to everyone who had believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. He looked at the camera that was still rolling, his eyes glistening. I didn't come here for fame. He said softly, I came here to tell the world that even the smallest voice can be heard, if it sings from love. As he stepped outside that night, the California sky was bright with stars, almost as bright as the sea back home. He tilted his head smiling. We did it, Pa, he whispered. And somewhere, carried by the wind and the warmth of applause still echoing in his ears, it felt as if a gentle voice answered, you always could. The video of Raymond's performance hit the internet like a tidal wave. Within hours it had spread across every social media platform, gathering millions of views. People weren't just impressed, they were moved. In living rooms across America, families sat speechless, tears in their eyes as they watched the humble Filipino man in his simple Barong Tagalog sing with a heart so full it seemed ready to burst. His voice carried the spirit of Elvis, but also something deeper, something pure. The title on YouTube, Ready, opened his mouth, and sounded exactly like Elvis. Filipino shocks Simon Cowell on AGT, and below it, the comments poured in by the thousands. I haven't cried like this in years. You can feel the love in his voice. This man brought Elvis back, but in a way that Philippines to the world. What a legend. Simon's face says it all. This is why music exists. The clip was shared on TV talk shows, news outlets, and radio stations. Even celebrities tweeted about him. A famous country singer from Nashville wrote, this man from the Philippines just reminded the world what soul sounds like. But while the world buzzed, Raymond sat quietly in his small dressing room, still trying to process what had happened. He ran his thumb over the grooves of his father's old vinyl, which he'd kept in his bag the entire time. The confetti from the golden buzzer still clung to his sleeves. He smiled faintly. Pay, he whispered, the world heard us. The next morning, Raymond's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, record producers and fans from all over the world wanted to talk to him. But the first call he answered wasn't from any of them. It was from home. Anak, his mother's voice burst through the speaker, trembling with joy.
We saw you. Everyone did.
The whole town was watching at the barangay hall. Even the mayor was crying. Raymond laughed through his tears.
Ma, really? Yes.
They showed your video on a big screen. When the gold confetti fell, we all screamed. Manglito said, I told you, that boy's got a golden heart. He could hear the cheering in the background, children shouting his name, neighbors clapping. The sound wrapped around him like a warm blanket. His mother's voice softened. Your father would be so proud, Anak. You sang like you were singing just for him. Raymond closed his eyes, his throat tightening. Over the next few days his story became front-page news. From tricycle driver to global sensation. One headline read, another called him, the Elvis of the East who stole America's heart. Yet, through it all, Raymond stayed grounded. Whenever interviewers asked him how it felt to be famous, he'd smile and say the same thing. I'm just thankful people still listen to music that comes from the heart. He refused luxury hotels and stayed in a small inn near the studio. He sent half of his AGT stipend back home to repair the church roof that had been leaking for years. When a company offered him a sponsorship deal for a soft drink commercial, he asked if part of the payment could go to the fishermen who had lost boats during the last typhoon. You have to think bigger, Raymond. His manager told him, this is your chance to live like a star. Raymond smiled kindly. Sir, I already feel like one because my whole town is shining with me. During one of the AGT semifinal shows, Simon Cowell called him backstage before his performance. Raymond approached nervously, clutching the same microphone he'd used in his audition. Simon looked at him seriously. Raman, do you know why I hit the golden buzzer? Raman hesitated. Because you like Elvis. Simon chuckled softly. No, because you reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That music isn't about perfection. It's about truth. When you sang, you weren't pretending to be Elvis. You were singing with him. Ramon's eyes glistened. Thank you, sir. I just wanted my father's dream to live on. Simon nodded slowly. It already has. That night, Raymond sang, If I Can Dream. The stage glowed with red and gold light, a single spotlight illuminating him as he closed his eyes and sang each line with trembling sincerity. If I can dream of a better land, where all my brothers walk hand in hand. As he sang, images of home filled his mind. His mother sweeping in front of the store, the fishermen pulling their nets. His voice soared higher, raw and unguarded. By the final chorus, even Simon was standing. The audience erupted again, waving Filipino flags. One banner read, San Felipe Proud. After the show, Raymond sat quietly in the dressing room again, reading messages from around the world. A war veteran wrote that Raymond's voice reminded him of the music he and his wife used to dance to before she passed away. A nurse from New York said his story gave her the strength to keep working through the pandemic. A teenage boy from Brazil said, You make me believe I can sing too, even if I'm poor. Raymond wiped his eyes, overwhelmed. He realized that his voice wasn't just carrying notes, it was carrying hope. He sent a video message to his mother that night. The camera shook a little as he spoke. Ma, they call me the Elvis of the East, but really, I'm just your son, the one who sang under your store lights. I wish you could see this. Every song I sing, it's for our people. His mother replied with a short video of her own, blurry, shot on an old phone. Behind her, the entire village was gathered around the TV again, cheering.
We see you, Anak. We see you,
she said, smiling through tears. When the AGT results for the semifinals came in, Raymond didn't win first place. But it didn't matter. The internet had already crowned him the people's champion. His audition clip became one of the most watched in AGT history. He was invited to perform at benefit concerts and charity events across America. He always accepted, but never for money. He'd say, I'll sing if it helps someone else's dream come true. One night, during a charity gala for children's hospitals, a young boy approached him in a wheelchair. Mr. Raman, he said shyly, when you sing my heart doesn't hurt anymore. Raman knelt beside him, smiling gently. Then I'll keep singing, so your heart keeps smiling. The boy hugged him tightly, and in that embrace, Raymond realized the truth. He hadn't just fulfilled his father's dream, he had become a bridge between hearts, proving that kindness and music could reach anyone, anywhere. That evening, as the show lights dimmed and the applause faded, Raymond stepped outside into the cool California night. The city shimmered around him, alive and endless. He took out the vinyl from his bag and looked up at the stars. He whispered, You were right. Music from the heart can travel the world. And as he walked down the quiet street, the glow of the city lights seemed to follow him. Just like the stars that had once shimmered over San Felipe, the world was listening now. The sun shimmered softly on the blue waters of the bay as the small ferry from Manila approached the familiar shores of Raymond's hometown. The salty wind brushed against his face, carrying the scent of seaweed and home, something he had longed for through months of bright lights, interviews, and hotel rooms that never quite felt his own. His heart thudded as the island came into view, his island, his people, his humble corner of the world. On the pier, a crowd had gathered, thousands of familiar faces, friends, neighbors, children he had once given rides to on his tricycle, waved flags and banners made from old tarpaulins. The words painted across them, though uneven, glowed with pride, Welcome home. Elvis of the East. We're proud of you, Raman. He could see his mother at the front of the crowd, her frail frame wrapped in her best floral dress, the same one she wore every Christmas. Her eyes were wet, her hands trembling as she held a small white flower lei. She looked like she had been waiting there all morning. As the ferry docked and Raymond stepped off, the cheering swelled like a wave.
Raman,
they called.
Sing for us. You made us proud. You did it, Kuya.
But Raymond wasn't thinking about fame or applause. All he saw was his mother. He rushed toward her, his throat tightening. When he finally reached her, she slipped the flower lei around his neck, and without a word they embraced. She clung to him, sobbing softly into his shoulder. I told your father you'd do it, she whispered through her tears. I told him you'd sing for the world one day. Raymond held her tightly, his own tears falling freely. Ma, he whispered. I think he heard me. The villagers encircled them, some clapping, others wiping their eyes. Even the fishermen who rarely showed emotion stood with glistening eyes, smiling through their rough, sun-worn faces. That evening the whole town gathered for a celebration in the small plaza beside the chapel. String lights swayed between coconut trees, and long tables were filled with adobo pancit and trays of bibingka. Children ran barefoot, chasing each other through the laughter, while a few elders strummed old guitars, humming Elvis songs off-key but with all their hearts. Raymond sat quietly for a while, watching everyone. He didn't feel like a celebrity, he felt like a bridge. His story had carried a piece of them all to the world stage. The people who had loaned him coins, the man who'd sold his fish, the teacher who'd written his letter to AGT. All of them had sung with him that night in America. As the laughter died down and the night grew soft, one of the children tugged at his sleeve. "Kuya Raymond," the boy asked shyly, "will you sing for us, like you did for Simon?"
The crowd began to chant, "Sing! Sing!"
Raymond smiled. Standing slowly, he looked around at the familiar faces, each one glowing in the golden hue of the hanging lights. Then he nodded. "Okay," he said softly, "but not for Simon tonight. This one is for all of you." Someone handed him an old microphone connected to a small speaker. It crackled, the way it always had during town fiestas. He took a deep breath and began strumming a guitar borrowed from one of the old men nearby. The opening chords of "Can't Help Falling in Love" drifted through the air, gentle, nostalgic, pure. His voice, rich and golden, still hauntingly like Elvis, rolled through the plaza mingling with the sound of waves in the distance. But there was something deeper in it now. Not imitation, not performance. It was love, gratitude, the voice of a man who had traveled across oceans but never left home. "Take my hand, take my whole life too." The villagers swayed. His mother closed her eyes, smiling. Tears sparkled on more than a few faces, and when Raymond reached the last line, he looked up at the stars, imagining his father somewhere above, smiling back. "For I can't help falling in love with you." When the song ended, silence lingered for a heartbeat, then applause erupted. Children jumped, the elders cheered, and his mother, hand over her heart, mouthed, "Thank you." Raymond bowed slightly, laughing through his tears. Later that night when the lights had dimmed and the crowd had gone home, Raymond sat by his mother's sari store, the same spot where it all began. The wooden bench creaked beneath him as he gazed at the sky. Fireflies blinked in the tall grass, and the moon cast a soft glow over the sleeping town. His mother brought out 2 cups of coffee and sat beside him. "You know," she said, her voice soft and thoughtful, "your father always said music was never meant to make you rich, it was meant to make you whole." Raymond nodded. "He was right, Ma. I didn't win the show. But I won something bigger. I saw how one song could make people remember who they are, make them feel again." His mother smiled. "You gave the world a piece of your soul, Hijo. That's more than any trophy." They sat in silence for a while, the waves whispering in the distance. Then Raymond began to hum again, softly, like a lullaby carried on the night breeze. His voice wasn't performing anymore, it was simply existing, honest and free. Months later, videos of Raymond's homecoming and his small town concert began to circulate online. People around the world watched as the sang barefoot under string lights, surrounded by his community. Comments poured in. "This is what real music feels like." I cried. "His humility shines brighter than fame. He's proof that kindness and talent can change the world." A news outlets picked up the story again, this time not about his AGT performance, but about the kindness that built his journey. The little fishing village in the Philippines became a symbol of unity and hope. Tourists began visiting, curious to see where the man who sounded like Elvis but sang with his heart was from. But Raymond never left again. He chose to stay, teaching children to sing and lending his voice to charity concerts. Whenever someone asked him why he didn't chase a bigger career in America, he would smile and say, "Because everything I ever dreamed of was already here. The people who believed in me, the love that started it all." One night, a local TV station aired a short documentary about his life. The final shot showed Raymond sitting by the sea at sunset, his silhouette framed by orange light. His voice narrated softly, "Music isn't about sounding like someone else. It's about helping others hear themselves again." Then, as the camera faded out, he began to sing once more, his voice rising like a prayer over the ocean, carrying across waves and hearts alike.